So this video is going to ruffle some feathers within academia, but let's talk about it. So academia is currently facing a crisis which they don't seem to realize, but there is a lack of diversity of thought in research. And this video is essentially a wake-up call to academia to highlight the lack of diversity of thought, which is a pressing issue that is negatively impacting academic research. So this issue is partly caused by socioeconomic barriers that are preventing people with brilliant ideas from studying a PhD or pursuing academic research, because generally speaking, you need to be from a middle or high income household to study a PhD and be able to afford the costs associated with studying a PhD, especially because there's a lot of financial costs that come with this. And generally speaking, again, people from lower income households are less likely to go down the path of studying a PhD because they need to get into the job market sooner rather than later so they can start making money to support themselves and their families financially. And also, to add sort of insult to injury here, academia isn't exactly known for having high salaries. So if you're already coming from a lower income household, logically speaking, you're not going to go down this path. You're going to go into the private sector basically and get a decent paying job or high paying job, probably higher paying job than the money you would get in academia, so that you can go about supporting yourself and your family, like I said. Now, I want to be clear that I'm not saying that people from lower income households can't study a PhD. What I'm saying is there are barriers, just financial barriers in place. Because, I don't know off the top of my head or in my personal kind of circle, I don't know anyone from a lower income household who has gone to study a PhD. But I know a lot of people from middle income households who have gone to study a PhD. But again, you can be from a low income and pursue a PhD. There are ways to skin the cat, as it were. But it will just be tougher. But it is doable. But again, I'm speaking in generalities here as to why the socioeconomic barrier has led to a lack of diversity of thought within the research space. Academia has been perceived as a hub for knowledge and innovation for a very long time. I say perceived because for a very long time, that has been the perception. But I believe that in the last few years, academia, and by extension, academic institutions, Harvard, are being perceived as more political hubs rather than scientific hubs. But I'll let Eric Weinstein explain to you, because he seems to have more knowledge about this than I do at this moment in time.
Harvard is sort of an extension of the U.S. government. The government department, which is sort of Harvard's version of poli-sci, is kind of an extension of the State Department at times. The economics department ends up setting economic policy in many ways for the United States.
The conversation is far more intrinsic, so I've put the link to the full video in the description so you can watch it in your own time. Focusing back on the socioeconomic barriers that are preventing diversity of thought in academia and hindering academic progress, academia is increasingly becoming homogenized, and this isn't just affecting the individuals who can participate in academic research, but it's shaping the direction that academic research takes, which often leaves out crucial perspectives and research areas. This homogeneity problem is impacting the research that is carried out and limiting innovation by placing it in the hands of a small group of academics from similar backgrounds who tend to share similar perspectives and ideas. Now, I just want to be clear before I continue. It's not always true that people from similar backgrounds share similar perspectives, but generally speaking, there is a high probability of people from similar backgrounds having similar ideas and perspectives. And this is neither right nor wrong. It's the, what would you say? It's the simple reality of being human. And this has created an environment that is essentially an echo chamber where dissenting voices are either silenced or ignored, and we have ended up with a collective mindset that resists change and is not open to new ideas, which is most likely the reason why it seems that academics across the world share similar mindsets and ideas and refuse to believe or accept different perspectives. Academic institutions are a goddamn mess right now, with rumors and allegations of corruption and toxic working environments. The recent controversy surrounding the Harvard president having plagiarized her way to the top has added fuel to the fire, and the Harvard PR machine has been struggling to mend the cracks, because they either have to say that they didn't know she plagiarized her work, which essentially means that they have a crappy process for appointing a president to head their university, or they have to admit that they knew she plagiarized her research and appointed her anyway. Either way, it delegitimizes them as an academic institution. Forget about being recognized as a top-tier academic institution. Right now, can we even recognize Harvard as an academic institution, period? Should we take the research that they produce and consider it, or just throw it straight in the bin? These are serious questions that need answers, and the ripple effect this has goes beyond academia into general society, because research, scientific or otherwise, shapes technology, policies, and the frameworks that govern our lives. Eric Weinstein touched on this earlier. When the architects of scientific advancements come from a homogeneous group, the needs and perspectives of the broader society are less likely to be adequately addressed or even considered. We're seeing this play out in the Western world at the current moment. It's high time that academia embraces inclusivity, as in the inclusivity of different mindsets, not the kind of inclusivity they're currently obsessing over, because it opens doors to a wider range of voices and experiences which are sorely lacking in academia at the moment. People that look different but think the same offer less value to academia than people who may look the same but have different thought processes and mindsets. Although I prefer we don't focus on how people look and prioritize their ideas, perspectives, and critical thinking skills, as well as their openness to new ideas that may challenge their preconceived notions. After all, an individual's ability to change their mind when presented with new information or evidence is important to the process of developing new, innovative breakthroughs. Diverse perspectives are needed to drive meaningful research, challenge established norms, and push the boundaries of knowledge. The future of academia depends on it. Another issue that needs to be addressed to increase the amount of diverse mindsets in academia is the lack of scholarships, grants, and funding models that are available to make PhD research accessible to a broader demographic. In the UK, you can get student finance to fund your PhD. This is a loan from the government which you have to pay back once you start earning a salary. The student finance is meant to pay for your tuition, accommodation, and living costs, but it doesn't come close to covering all of those expenses. So most PhD students usually end up doing part-time teaching as lecturers at the university so they can receive a stipend to pay for their living costs. However, in certain cities like London and Cambridge, which are a lot more expensive, the students end up having to also work a part-time job on top of lecturing at the university. You can see how insane this is, right? When, as a PhD student, are you meant to focus on your actual PhD research, when you spend a decent chunk of your time working to pay the necessary bills so you can stay in your PhD program? It's a catch-22. Better funding models need to be developed, otherwise academic research will remain a homogenized bubble of circular thought with a negative impact on scientific innovation. As bad as things are in the UK, at least there's student finance. Most countries don't even have that, so it's much worse in other parts of the world. It's probably what contributes to scientific breakthroughs mostly taking place in Western countries like the US, UK, France, etc. But remember that only a very small group of people in those countries are carrying out the necessary research to make those scientific breakthroughs. So the breakthroughs are still limited by their perception, perspectives, and life experiences. A good example of this is the research and innovation being carried out for space travel, with Elon Musk and Jeff Bezos, amongst others, being at the forefront. I like both of these gentlemen. They've developed incredible solutions for the tech industry. But how many people in general society actually care about space travel and the colonization of Mars when they can barely afford to make ends meet as it stands? For them, innovation to help resolve their current issues would be more beneficial. But if the majority of people in academia haven't had similar life experiences, they are less likely to focus on solving such problems, which has been the case for the most part. In conclusion, academia faces a crisis with the lack of diversity of thought that is currently present, and this needs to be addressed head-on. The barriers that have priced out and prevented talented people from studying a PhD must be broken down to ensure that academia reflects the rich and diverse perspectives present within our society. Voices that have been silenced for far too long must be welcomed back into the fold. Only then can we reshape the future of research, innovation, and education so they benefit the majority of people within society.